We are on Facebook Live and we are live on Zoom.
Awesome. Hello, everybody. Thank you for those of you that are joining with us today. As you can see on your screen, I'm joined by Police Chief Chris Battalora, Town Administrator Jim Galday, and our Regional Health Director Megan Avalone. So we thought we would just give you a few brief updates, and really the intention is to hopefully answer any questions that you might have. We have tried to be very proactive with our communications every day, but there's also a lot of things that people might all benefit from hearing. So I thought I wanted to just start off by actually acknowledging today, very fittingly, is National Nurses Day. So I know, Megan, that includes you, and so many of our heroes that are on the front lines of this pandemic. So we recognize and acknowledge you today. So happy National Nurses Day to everyone, and thank you for all that you've done. I thought what we'd do is I would begin with just giving a bit of an update on COVID and our community. I'm then going to hand it off to Megan, who can give you her perspective from the regional health and statewide, what's going on there. Then I'm going to hand it off to Chief Battalora, who's just going to give you his perspective update about compliance and things that are going on. And wrap it up with Jim Gilday, who will just give some general town updates, and then we're going to open it up to questions. So regarding Westfield, and as of last night, we have 238 cases to date. Many people are asking about long-term care facilities. In our town, only 36 of those 238 are coming from long-term care facilities, which is 15%. Many places they make up a much larger percentage, but in our case, it's critical, but it's small. Unfortunately, we have had 35 fatalities. They range in age from 58 to 98. 18 of those fatalities, roughly half, are from long-term care facilities, and obviously half are not. You know, it breaks my heart every time we have to report when that 35 reflects, I think, 2 that we'll be reporting this evening. I know a couple people that have lost fathers-in-law and mothers-in-law, and I can't even imagine the challenges in losing someone in which you can't be with them as they're sick and in their final days, and very critically can't mourn collectively with friends and family when they're gone. So we're going to talk about, as we get through this hump, what we can do as a community to collectively mourn all those that we have lost. But 35, it's beyond, it's incomprehensible to me, and it's tragic. And we will do something to acknowledge these residents when we get through the other side. So sending prayers to everybody that's impacted by these, including many people I know. We also look at Overlook, and we get daily data from Overlook, because I think that's a good indication of where things are going and hospitalizations and so forth. So I thought I'd share with you a few facts from Overlook, and Megan can certainly give more context for this. So they currently have 156 COVID-related patients in Overlook, and that is down from a high of 311 that they had on April 10th. 109 of those patients are confirmed positive, and 47 are waiting results, which I think might be presumptive positive. 37 are either in the intensive care unit or the critical care unit. That's 37. There was a high of those, they had 72 on April 14th. So those numbers have dropped in half, luckily. There's 42 ventilators in use from a high of 78 on April 13th. So clearly that second week of April was really the peak for us here in our community. And Westfield does make up that's generally Overlook tends to be the place where our patients go. So that was the peak. And I think you can see by our cases that we are now getting like 1 or 2, it seems like, a day. The last two days we had cases of 0, but Chief is the one that actually gets all the numbers initially, and he can talk about it. We're not celebrating the fact that we had 2 days in a row with 0 cases yet, because there are some issues with reporting specifically over the weekend. So I think by the end of this week, we'll know more about if that's a real trend, but we certainly hope so. On some really great news fronts, We Love Local, that fund that's raised over $250 $25,000 is wrapping up. We're going to do one final push for donations, which you'll hear about soon. And so happy that we are played a critical but small role in really keeping many of these businesses afloat, or at least want to be able to take care of employees, etc. We had a really great news story this week, which we're going to talk more about, but I don't know if many of you recall a couple weeks ago, I asked for a call for donations for sewers to create gowns for the Genesis Senior Center out on Lambert's Mill. The chief can talk about how shockingly, we didn't have any access to gowns for these seniors. We were delivering rain ponchos that needed to be sterilized and disinfected, etc. So through the grace and goodwill of so many of our residents, the chief and his department delivered 100 gowns to Genesis over the last 2 days, and it was driven by the generosity of resident Mitch Gambert, who owns Bespoke by Gambert on North Avenue. He has a shirt making factory in Newark, and that factory has been converted to making masks. And so he donated the fabric, and he used his machines to cut actually the patterns, which was then distributed to this great, amazing sewing group, New Jersey Sews in Unity, where all these amazing residents sewed these beautiful gowns out of the shirt fabric for these seniors in need. So we're going to share more about it. We got great pictures and so forth, but it was incredibly heartwarming story of so many people and so many talents coming together for great good in Genesis. With thrilled, and maybe the chief can elaborate on that when he speaks. I also get a lot of questions clearly about reopening plans. Many of you know that the executive orders that have been passed on by the governor, their executive orders supersede anything that can be done at the municipal level. So we don't really have the authority to make the determination of when things will open and how they're going to open. That really is being driven by the state. So as you guys might have known, the governor was last week, he discussed a 6-point plan based upon some principles and metrics to be able to reopen. Some people, I think, were frustrated because it didn't also come with timelines, but it's, the unpredictability of this pandemic and how we're faring is a little bit difficult to put significant timelines against. So, but we're following those state guidelines. So more on that. But in the meantime, we did host a meeting. I say Bob Zuckerman, the executive director of the DWC, hosted a meeting last week with a variety of people to discuss and along with the chamber, what a reopening plan could look like when we get the green light on a path forward. So we want to make sure that we are ready as things are able to open up, that we have a plan in place, our businesses have the materials and resources they need so that they can be in compliance with whatever guidelines come our way. And we're talking about creative things regarding parking and how to, whatever we can do to ensure that our businesses are successful, we're going to be prepared to do. So obviously more on that when more details and timeline becomes available. I do want to just thank everybody. As you know, we reopened the parks last Saturday. I'd be lying if I didn't tell you I was a nervous wreck when I saw the 70-degree forecast, and I was just had visions of crowds in the park and everything. But thank you, because everybody did the right thing. I think, traffic, cars weren't an issue. I think people were respectful of social distancing. Thank you for doing the right thing. And being mindful. I think probably as many of you, I didn't let my kids go to the park, so I just wasn't sure what would be awaiting. So it's great. I understand everybody it was a great show of community support. So thank you all for doing that. And so I just want to say, reopening things, whether it's golf courses or parks, I think it gives a tendency, you get a little and you just tend to relax. And this is no time to relax. Still be vigilant about your social distancing. The last thing we want and need in our community is a second spike. I'm sure you've all read, people are worried about a double spike of flu season and this coming back in the fall. So even as things open up, please be mindful and respectful of social distancing so that we can be sure that we do not have to go through this a second time. And in that same vein, I do want to mention, I got a couple emails from some businesses over the weekend on this beautiful day. I think people riding into town with families and getting ice cream. And so even kids, I think, were coming up and they weren't wearing masks. So please, just everybody in the family, keep a mask in your pocket. And if you're, in town or in proximity to a business owner or another person, please just pull it out of your pocket. And I think as people we get more people coming outside, it's gonna be more important than ever. So please, I know you're not required, but we just ask out of courtesy to the businesses, if you would do that, would be fantastic. And I just want to say thank you all for the comments and the feedback and the social distancing and the compliance that has been so great. It is the most selfless act that we could do as a community. And you've been great, and I'm very grateful for that. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Megan, who can give whatever context you might have.
Thank you, Mayor. So as the mayor stated, we are at the point where things are headed in the right direction, right? Which is so good to be able to say out loud. We are not there yet, but we are on our way to getting there. When we look at the indicators, that how we know that we're getting there, one of the things that we look at is the numbers that are reported to us. So as we've talked about in our daily updates, the last few days, there have been a trickling in of cases, but you can't look at the day-to-day number of cases for a variety of reasons. The way that the cases are reported through the lab, sometimes there is a delay based upon the number of staff that the lab has working that day. So for example, if you were to get tested over the weekend and the staff had less staff working the weekend, that might not make its way to us to a Tuesday. So there's a lot of human indicators at play that we really want to look at a 2-week span for numbers to get a really accurate idea of what's going on. The 14-day moving average in Union County and in New Jersey has been decreasing. So that's really, really great to hear. That's the direction that we really want to continue to move in. In Union County, in particular, we have 1,360 confirmed cases and 800 deaths. Now, these are just the individuals that were tested and came back positive. This isn't by any means an accurate account of the number of disease, the amount of disease that we're seeing in the community. But one thing that looks really promising is statewide. The percent of positive tests that we're seeing are down to 39%. At the peak in mid-April, we were at 60+%. So I know that we are asking a lot, and I know that we're asking individuals to really sacrifice a lot. We haven't seen our family and our friends in weeks, but clearly what we're doing is working, and I'm so appreciative to all the residents that are really following the guidance, because I'm well aware it's a sacrifice, but just the numbers alone are really showing me that we're on the track to getting through this somewhere in the very near future. A lot of questions have been coming into the health department, particularly regarding titer testing. So I'd like to spend a moment talking about that. Antibody testing or titer testing is now widely available through certain doctor's offices or urgent care clinics, like I think CityMD and maybe PM Pediatrics, and any individual can go and get these tests. And the idea is with a test that they run on your blood, the idea is that you should be able to see if you have antibodies for the novel coronavirus. But I want to caution all residents before they sign up for these tests that there are several things here why we're not recommending them. The first is that they're not very specific. So what that means is you may have had a seasonal coronavirus throughout the year, which would present like a typical cold or a mild flu. But this test may cross-react with that. So you could get a false positive thinking you had novel coronavirus, but in reality, you never did. So you may think you're protected, but you're not. Additionally, this test looks for long-term antibodies, IgG antibodies. This virus is so new to us, we're really not sure when your short-term antibodies, your IgM antibodies, switch over to provide that long-term immunity. So we're not necessarily sure that if people get negative results, if that's actually true, that they don't have any level of protection. And of course, these tests have not been fully approved by the FDA. So what we're trying to share with residents, if you want to get the tests, it's not going to be harmful, but please don't use these tests as a way to think that you're more protected. And really, these tests should not be used as an indicator to change any type of behavior at this point. We are really still looking for all residents to adhere to that social distancing guidelines and the enhanced hand hygiene guidelines as well. You know, if we can just stay the course for a few more weeks, I think that we'll see our way through the end. You know, one thing I've been saying over and over again, it really resonates with me and the staff here certainly. I've been telling everybody, you know, listen, we're in this together. We're going to get through it together, right? And I know it seems like, you know, even myself, I'm kind of getting antsy because we've been staying home for weeks now. But I really think the numbers are really showing us that we're getting close to the end. Also, I've been getting a lot of calls about contact tracing, individuals who are interested maybe in volunteering for contact tracing efforts. So the health department currently, we are able to in-house provide the contact tracing for Westfield and the communities that we serve currently. But that's because of two reasons. That's because for the most part, everybody's currently home. So their contacts are pretty limited to household contacts. So that makes it a little easier. And secondly, we're not really testing a lot of individuals at this point. I believe at last count, Union County has estimated they've only tested about 2% of the population. My department, we have reviewed over 1,100 cases and done contact tracing for over 1,100 cases, but that's only 1% of the population that we serve. Certainly, as we start to reopen as a society and as testing becomes more available, we will certainly need reinforcements for contact tracers. However, as of right now, it looks like that program is going to be spearheaded at the state level. So I don't have any specific details now as to what type of reinforcements we need, but when we do start to figure out exactly what we need, we will post it on the website, and at that time we will certainly look for members of the community to assist us if needed.
Thank you, Megan. Megan, can you address two things? One is what is going on with long-term care facilities and what is the state doing that? And secondly, if you have any insight into the saliva testing from Rutgers, and I think that's being offered in Middlesex County at the moment, which seems very promising. I don't know if you know anything about that, of when that might be more prevalent, potentially even statewide.
Right. Okay, so I'll take long-term cares first. So, we have been working very, very closely with the long-term care centers in Westfield, which include Westfield Center, formerly known as Genesis on Lambert's Mill, and Sunrise, which is on, I guess, Springfield Avenue, South Springfield. We are in contact with these facilities daily. They report to us on how many individuals are sick, how many staff are sick daily. We've had weekly conference calls with these facilities talking about what they're doing in terms of infection control. The staff members are so dedicated in these facilities, but it's an uphill battle. You have residents in these facilities who are just more at risk for this virus. So we have been working really closely with them, and the state health department has been brought in as well, specifically to help with Westfield Center Genesis to offer their insight. Also, our goal is to really be here as a resource for them and to make sure that the residents and the staff are as protected as possible and remain as safe as possible. And we'll continue to work with them to provide any resource that we think might be helpful to them. It's important to remember these facilities are a little different in the sense that the local health department in the town, we don't license them and we don't regulate them. So our role is really just to provide guidance, which, as I've said, we have been doing. You know, I don't have the ability, not that there would need to be, but I don't have the ability for any of these centers to levy fines, to close them down. They're licensed and regulated by the state health department, but certainly we have been in constant contact with both of them to offer support and guidance as needed. And with the Rutgers, the rapid antigen test with the saliva, it looks promising. I know it's Middlesex that they released it to, right? I think this is the future of testing in New Jersey and nationwide, and I think it's a great thing. It's more convenient. We'll get the results immediately, and the benefit to get, you know, I talked previously about some of the lag with the labs and the reporting to us just based on scheduling and how many resources they have available. But these rapid tests really eliminate that, and what that means from a public health viewpoint is we can start contact tracing immediately. So I think that these tests are really promising, and I think that we're going to see much more of them in the near future.
Thank you. The Chief?
Thank you, Mayor. As the Mayor indicated, I received daily reports from the Union County Prosecutor's Office regarding positive COVID-19 tests in Westfield here. As of this date, my numbers differ just a little bit, but they're inconsequential. I have 239 positive tests that have been reported in Westfield. And of those, 35 of them, or roughly 15%, have come from long-term care facilities here in town. The sole purpose of us receiving these daily reports is that so we can enter address flags into our computer-aided dispatch system, which alerts our dispatchers to those addresses where we have positive tests. In turn, our dispatchers can alert responding police, fire, and EMS units when they're responding to an address where there's a positive test, so that they can take proper mitigation methods, such as donning full personal protective equipment. I want everyone to know that you know, we recognize the great sensitivity of this information, and that we safeguard it with the highest regulations with regards to their confidentiality. So you have nothing to worry about with us. We are taking great care not to expose anyone to this virus. And in that, I mean when we respond to calls for service and we have direct face-to-face contact with people here in town. Early on, 4 of our officers tested positive for the virus after experiencing signs and symptoms. 3 other officers experienced signs and symptoms, but they either tested negative or testing for them was not recommended. And 8 more officers were placed on leave immediately after potential direct exposures while in the performance of duty. These exposures were the direct result of responding to calls for service and or making warranted custodial arrests for certain serious offenses like driving under the influence. Unfortunately, even during a declared state of emergency, crimes still occur, and we continue to receive emergency calls for service that not only warrant an immediate police response, but they also require us to come into close face-to-face contact with persons. All of these officers have since returned to work after appropriate periods of self-quarantine and after receiving medical clearance from their own personal physicians. And I'm very happy to say right now that the Westfield Police Department presently has no officers whatsoever on leave for any reasons related to COVID-19. So that is a great thing for us. We're able to maintain our staffing and ensure a continuity of services here. One of our officers, and that's Timothy Donovan, who was also a chief warrant officer in the United States Naval Reserves. He was recently ordered to active duty in support of the military's response to events related to the pandemic, and he will remain on active duty for up to 1 year. We wish Chief Warrant Officer Donovan the best of luck. We hope he stays safe while serving this country, and we look forward to his return to his wife and children and to us here at the Westfield Police Department as soon as possible. The Westfield Police Department continues to be as busy as ever. It's just a different kind of busy for us. Our school resource officers have been redesignated as community service officers, and they have been diligently addressing the needs of the senior citizens of our community and others with special needs. They have been working closely with our chaplain, Deacon Gibbons of Holy Trinity Church, to support the Westfield Food Pantry. And they're ensuring that those in need during these tough times get the assistance they need. Chaplain Gibbons and the community resource officers are organizing a food drive to further assist those in needs, and we will release more information on that in the very near future. I want to reiterate once again, the Westfield Police Department is here to help you. During this pandemic, we have evolved from a law enforcement agency to more of a public service agency. My goal as Chief of Police is and has always been to ensure that no one is forgotten about. No one will be left behind. If you need us, please call us. Our officers are doing everything in their power to assist those in need, and that includes in performing many non-traditional police functions, and we will continue to do that for as long as necessary. I'm so very proud of how our officers have adapted to the changing needs of our community and how they have been working to ensure for the continuous uninterrupted delivery of emergency services during these difficult and dangerous times. Our officers are always at their best when things are at their worst. And during this public health crisis, it has been no different. They have families and loved ones at home. They have the same fears as all of you have, but they still put on the uniform. They come to work every day because our mission, this town, its people, they come first. And our officers, they recognize that, and I applaud them for that. Our officers continue to enforce the executive orders of the governor and the administrative orders of the state director of the Office of Emergency Management, who happens to also be the colonel, the superintendent of the New Jersey State Police. Since March 19th, the Westfield Police Department has conducted 1,794 documented self-initiated compliance checks of parks and playlands, restaurants and businesses, churches, and other religious facilities to ensure compliance with these directives. I'm very happy to say not a single person, business, or other entity has been charged with any crimes or criminal offenses related to the state's emergency orders. That's not to say that there haven't been any, but that our officers have been able to properly educate persons and interact with them in such a positive way that they've been able to achieve voluntary compliance. And because of that subsequent voluntary compliance, it was determined that the issuance of criminal charges was not warranted. That says a tremendous something about the people of Westfield, and I want to commend all of you for that. I do not want Westfield residents to be mentioned in any of the governor's daily briefings, and I do not want any Westfielders being recognized as some of New Jersey's knuckleheads. Lastly, I want to thank those residents and businesses of Westfield who have shown such sincere appreciation for the police officers operating on the front lines of this pandemic. The meals that you have sent us, the personal protective equipment, the cleaning and disinfectant supplies, the professional services you've offered us at no charge, the handwritten cards of encouragement from school children, it has all been absolutely overwhelming for us. We want to, and we will, at some point in the very near future, publicly recognize each and every one of you, from the young Haley and Sadie Pitagala of Westfield, who baked and delivered cookies to us, to Sean MacArthur and the legendary Antonio Tony Cucaro of the maintenance staff at the Westfield Public Schools, who regularly disinfect our prisoner processing areas and all the other common rooms and areas of our police headquarters, as well as each and every one of our patrol cars regularly. To Vincent and Danielle Corso, the owners and operators of Two Maids and a Mop, who professionally launder hundreds of our microfiber cleaning towels every week. To our very own Maria Ribeiro, who herself is a Westfield resident and who works here at the municipal building every day, cleaning and disinfecting our police station so that it's safe for all of us to come to work. During this pandemic, we've seen some of the very best of Westfield, and every single one of you deserves recognition. So we intend to do that in the very near future. So please be on the lookout for something special coming soon.
Bravo, Chief. And I'll just reiterate that. And also, you're absolutely right in terms of watching your department become the community officers that you had always envisioned. And it really is a real tribute to your leadership. So thank you for what you've been doing. You've set the tone and you've enabled the culture that have gotten your officers to respond the way they have. And our community is grateful for it. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Mayor.
So Jim, I thought Jim could give us an update on town operations and other things.
Sure, thank you. And thank you, Chief and Megan. And just important to mention, the Chief mentioned this too. We've been very fortunate in Westfield, our employees, besides the police department where we've had the most positive cases, had some other cases in other departments. But again, as the Chief said, we're happy to say here in Westfield that there right now is no positive cases for employees. You know, the Chief, the police department, fire department, public works, board of health employees, those whole departments have been working basically nonstop. Other departments, you've had staggered shifts to protect employees. But again, from the residents of the town of Westfield, you should be very happy that the steps we've taken to ensure our employee safety, and of course you doing what you have to do as a residents have really helped us keep things going very well here. A couple things to mention that are going on. There's a lot of stuff going on here, even though we're in a pandemic and working on staggered shifts and so forth. So a couple things to mention. First, just a reminder about the budget. We did introduce our 2020 budget at the council meeting last week. It is scheduled for adoption on May 26th, and the budget at westfieldnj.gov address is open for Q&A between now and then. And we'll be posting the Q&As we received very shortly and the answers that have been provided. Also, just another big thank you. It's a lot of thank yous today. Thank you to the public for paying your taxes. We have that's what keeps every town going, not just Westfield. But you know, we have many ways to pay our taxes. Of course, we've always had this. You pay online, you come in person. We have many people who like to come in and see our staff and see Maria and see Jean and see Henry. Of course, we can't do that right now. So they miss you as you miss us. But the police department, they've always taken tax payments in the office, in the front lobby. We moved the box there to accommodate that. And we did a new quick thing to make it even more convenient. Another new mailbox put at the back of Town Hall, which has become a big hit. We've had a lot of people doing it. And so I just can't thank everyone enough for paying their taxes, paying on time. And right now we're basically on the same pace as we would without having a pandemic, without having an extended grace period. So that's very important and shows great pride in the town of Westfield, and you know, making sure we have the money to do what we need to do for you. So a couple other things. So tax collection is going well. Now, all the departments we mentioned, everyone's working. There's still a lot of projects going on. So today, as I look out my window, I'm in Newaskin Park. A lot of work going on here. The Pathways project is Pathways have started to be installed today. So that's great news. For a few more weeks, we'll have the Pathways installed, and then Park Drive, that's around the park here, will be repaved. So that's a project a long time coming, but that's going very well. And thanks to Chris McAlew and his engineering staff for having that going. And the Chief's Department for making sure the park continues to be closed. Reminder to the public, Newaskin Park is entirely closed because you have construction going on. So pedestrians should avoid this for the next few weeks. Sycamore Playground replacement, that project is continuing on as well. That'll be a summer fall project. We had a county grant last year, so the recreation department staff is moving forward with that to replace that playground area. And we also partnered with the Terry DeFalco Family Fund to do some other renovations over there. So they're looking forward to that late summer, fall. We mentioned this at our council meeting last week, but the train station coffee kiosk is almost finished. We are waiting to get a paint color scheme to move forward and paint the kiosk on the exterior, and the interior is basically finished. With the only thing we're waiting for now is the electric connection to be turned on and some electrical work to be done inside. But we hope to be out to RFP very shortly, and hopefully when things open up for everybody and the train starts being used more often, we'll have a nice coffee kiosk to provide coffee and maybe other things as well. So that's almost finished. Mural. Last fall, we had a mural done under the train bridge. We are about to start our second side of the mural, all done through grant monies. So in the next few weeks, you'll start seeing the plywood canvas going up on the other side of the mural under the train bridge there, the South Avenue Circle area. And the local artist Ricardo will begin his mural in a few weeks, and so we're excited about that happening. Another good thing for the public to see. Conservation Center, another big thank you to all the users of the center. We were very concerned about long lines and long waits and problems about signing up online. None of that happened, thanks to the residents and public works employees who really, and the police who were out there helping the first few weeks, helping to make it a very smooth transition. So because of the success we've had and the number of permits we sold online sales continue. The center opened up on Saturdays for the first time last week. We are continuing to open up on Thursdays, Fridays, and Saturdays, and we're going to start opening up other programs starting this week, such as our bulky waste program, which you can buy permits online for the bulky waste drop-off, our mattress disposal program, which is also a cost, which will be done online. Those Scotch Plains residents who have not been able to buy permits, that will be open to them this week to buy permits for our center. We've always had a relationship with Scotch Plains residents that want to buy permits. And also Public Works is going to look to open up the free mulch and the free firewood with proper social distancing protocols put in place to allow residents to get that as well. So again, really kudos to the residents who have bought permits and used the center. We've had really no issues. I'm a permit holder myself, and I was down there this past weekend, and again, everyone was very compliant and excited to use the services that we provide, which is great. So again, more stuff that's coming, and you'll see more information in the mayor's updates starting tonight. A couple of minor things. Gas company utility work goes on in many areas in town, which obviously is something that's good for infrastructure improvements. That will mean, though, that we will have some road repaving done by the utility companies on our behalf later. We expect this summer, late summer and fall. So we'll be releasing information soon about what roads will be paved. We're also waiting for information from the state about what we can do as a town for road paving. So that'll be coming soon, but there will be road paving going on this year, most of it by utilities, which is great. Mountain Avenue is almost finished. That was a county project. And so that's great news, having that road paved, the main artery for our town. And West Broad Street, which is currently now undergoing utility work by both Elizabethtown Gas and American Water. That will be repaved by the county probably this summer. So another main artery coming in and out of our town, county road, that will also be done by the county this year. So another big paving job being done by the county. And last thing to mention, again, just employees and Public Works. Public Works has been working on staggered shifts for the past almost 7 weeks now to protect the employees, keep them healthy, but keep work going on. So there's 4 things I wanted to share. We have 4 main divisions of Public Works, and basically give you 4 examples of things that have actually happened in the past number of weeks that they continue to do that you'll see results on. So Parks and Fields Division, they recently aerated and seeded fields 1 and 2 at Tamaulipas. We had the opportunity to do that. Fields are not being used, so we're doing it as a trial to see how that works. Maintenance of other fields and stuff like that is actually going on. Of course, there's no sports playing right now. They're also maintaining things in the parks. So that was a great opportunity for us to do that while fields are not being used. The Forestry Division, we're still continuing tree planting. We have a very robust spring tree planting, which is going on now. Residents' requests are being fulfilled. We're doing tree planting on public property. So thanks to Robbie and his crew. Roads, Eugene and his crew. A lot of pothole repairs coming in from See Click Fix, which is great. We're getting those requests almost every day. We're also using our large scale paver. We recently did a job the past 2 weeks to do a large section of Prospect Avenue that was in very bad shape. So Gene and his crew continue to master how to use the larger equipment, but we did a large repaving up there. And lastly, Craig Gibson and his downtown crew, if you've noticed, we have another opportunity that doesn't present itself very often, but parking lots are relatively empty. So he and his crew have done restriping of every space and space number in almost all of our parking lots. So it's a constant complaint we get year round about parking numbers faded, spaces faded. We're actually doing that now. We have the opportunity. So that's just 4 examples of some of the things each division is doing the past number of weeks and will continue to do. And we expect Public Works, like other departments, to come back in full very shortly to continue to provide services to the town. But again, just an overall big thank you, not only to the residents of the town for their cooperation and and adhering to the social distancing guidelines, not being able to come in town hall, but still working with services for us, and of course to the employees of the town. Again, even if you don't see them or hear about them, we have police, fire, public works, board of health. You hear about them quite a bit. We have the rescue squad, which is volunteers reacting every day. All of our departments, tax collector's office is here processing your tax payments, finance office, town clerk's office, recreation office, the court. We started our initial Zoom virtual courts last week. Judge Patel and his staff. We have a new court administrator who's jumped right in with both feet, and she's doing a wonderful job with her staff. So while you might not see us regularly every day or hear about us, a lot of issues going on, a lot of good work going on, and we hope to get back to some normalcy soon. But the reopening of not only what the mayor said downtown, town hall, operations for town will be gradual, but we're looking forward to getting back to it very soon. So thank you, Mayor, for providing the update or allowing me to provide an update.
No, thank you, Jim. And it's great. I want the public to know that we seem to be very COVID focused, but there's a lot of stuff happening. And even this week, I think there was a rec commission meeting. We had a planning board meeting. There was a board of health meeting. So we're all have been adapting to this new normal to make sure that things don't fall by the wayside. And so it's been great. And the court thing I find amazing. We're the first in the county to introduce this virtual Zoom courts, thanks to the proactivity and innovation of our judge Parag Patel and our new court administrator, and they're kind of setting an example for everybody else in the county to follow. And I love the fact that Westfield is kind of an innovation leader in that regard, and we've got people who are embracing these new ways of doing things. So thank you very much for that, Jim.
Sure.
Before I wrap up, I was just going to update a couple things. Just one thing I did want to mention about COVID, and I should have mentioned this earlier. One thing we hear a lot about, both from our DPW and I hear it from other people in town, is that people disposing their masks or gloves in the parks or on the streets. And obviously somebody has to clean those up. So, and I know it may not always be intentional, but just be incredibly mindful of your PPE. Hopefully it's good. Like I said, these are going to be just habits that we have them with us all the time, and please dispose of them properly, because it is, it's someone's got to do it. And it's just really unfair for those that have to clean up after this. So just be very courteous and mindful of that, in particular our downtown and our parks. It seems to be where it's the biggest issue. And the one thing I did want to bring up, many of you may have read the news about Lord & Taylor, that they are liquidating their, will be liquidating the 38 inventory, the inventory from their 38 stores, with the intention of closing when that's happened. And I must say, it's probably, it wasn't much of a surprise to me. I would imagine it wasn't a surprise to most of you if you have been following the news. And the good news is this is something that we had anticipated, not to be driven by a pandemic, but one of the first things I did after being sworn in as mayor was initiate and begin a relationship with the parent company at the time of Lord & Taylor, which is Hudson's Bay Company, who is the owner of the property of the Lord & Taylor and the 2 parking lots across the street. The operations of Lord & Taylor has since been turned over to Ursula Latote, who's been operating it for like the last 6 months, but Hudson's Bay remains the property owner. So we have been engaged with Hudson's Bay for almost 2 years. As I've mentioned many times, that they are interested in being a very transformative investor and partner with us in the town, which is a big reason why we have started the redevelopment process for those properties. So that redevelopment designation study is currently underway. We expect to get the study back by June-ish, when the council will adopt it and hopefully designate those properties, among others, as areas in need of redevelopment, which enables us to really begin and implement the conversations in earnest with Hudson's Bay about what could be and what we would want to see on that site. They've been very interested in our master plan reexamination and the public input that came out of that as a means to inform what might the possibilities be on that site. So in many ways, obviously heartbroken like me about Lord & Taylor. It was my go-to place all the time, but I think, we had seen the writing on the wall in the way that retail is going. But I feel that we are ahead of the curve in these conversations, and really very lucky that an investor and a developer like Hudson's Bay wants to partner with the town to do something that works in our mutual best interest. So there'll be more to come, but I don't want people to think that the reason I had reached out to Hudson's Bay 2 years ago was I never wanted to be caught flat-footed when we thought this announcement which I thought this inevitable announcement was going to come our way. And so the good news is we're very well ahead of the curve. We have great relationship with them and look forward to continuing the conversations once that designation is done so that we can talk about with them openly and transparently as a community on what we could see there. I do want to remind people, because people send me notes all the time about let's put on a community center, let's make it a public park, but it's just a reminder that property doesn't belong to us, it's theirs. They are a private property owner. And the fact that they're actually are interested in engaging with us on what the community would like to see there is very, very promising. And I would only ask people to keep an open mind about the possibilities as a means to make sure that we continue to engage them. I do worry, in absence of that, there's a lot they could do on that site as of right, which would not require any type of engagement with the community, and it could be a tenant. And they had actually mentioned that Walmart was somebody who was interested in being there, and I know that is not something that we want, nor is it something that we think would be a good fit for the community. Quite frankly, they don't either. But my only point in saying that is let's keep an open mind about the possibilities that could be there, and let's work with them at the right time to come up with something that's a great opportunity for us to transform and revitalize our downtown, but in a way that gives them an economic benefit as well. So, but I'm sad about Lord and Taylor, but I am very optimistic about a transformational future on that site. So I just wanted to put that out there. So with that, I think we have a few questions.
We do, Mayor. I'll go back to the first one. We had a question about, I guess, Megan, can you elaborate on what you said about being near the end of this? Do you envision us being able to reopen shops and restaurants in the next few weeks? I think you can answer that, Megan. I think you were referring to the public health portion of this. The shops and restaurants are really, as the mayor said, going to be guided by what the state allows us to do through executive order. So go ahead, Megan.
Thank you, Jim. And I want to be clear. We're not there yet, right? So it's so important for us to really stay the course and continue to social distance appropriately. But the numbers, again, are really showing that we are getting there. And of course, getting there leads us one step closer to reopening. So I'm confident that we are on our way there, but we are just not quite there yet.
And just to reiterate Jim's point about the state, I think Governor Murphy has said we're going to open as a state. So I think that the decision about restaurants and so forth is going to be driven by the governor, and it's going to be, from my understanding, primarily a statewide directive. So, because the concern is, even if Westfield or Union County is doing well as a community, if we prematurely open and surrounding communities or counties have not, we could be, those people will be coming to our restaurants and our retail shops and potentially, restarting our process all over again. So I do think that that's something that we have to be mindful of as well. So we can't, as I said, I know it's frustrating that we can't give a definitive timeline, but these health metrics that we mentioned and Megan talked about, it's really important that we get to reach some of those milestones first.
Okay, that question was from Jackie Lieberman. The second question we have is from Marcy Vandelli. She's thanking us for all we're doing. I'm not sure we can answer this, but do you have any information about the delays in statewide unemployment benefits, and also what happens to people who have been laid off and their medical insurance has been terminated? I will say we have very good resources on our website, our coronavirus website, for all these things. This is something the mayor and I hear about almost daily on our county calls from all the towns in the county asking questions on unemployment. So there are phone numbers to call and websites to go on about this exact issue, Marcy. So our coronavirus website resource center has this exactly on it, and you can definitely reach out to your issue. Part of the question is also about reaching out to state assembly and state senators. You can definitely reach out to Senator King's office, to Senator Bradnick's office. We've been in touch with Senator King's office on multiple occasions, and he's been very helpful as well. But yeah, our website has all these features on it.
And yeah, I've also, so I haven't really engaged with John Bramnick's office. I've directed a few state unemployment questions to Senator Kane. And I will say Congressman Malinowski has, he has a dedicated caseworker on employment issues and stuff like that. And he has been also incredibly helpful and responsive. I have to say our federal legislators have been very proactive. I've heard personally from Cory Booker many times, as well as his director. I hear from Senator Menendez, state director, very frequently, and I hear from Tom Malinowski directly or his staff. So I have to say, from the federal perspective, they've been, in light of all the things that have been going on, they have been incredibly proactive and responsive. So I would also suggest don't hesitate to reach out to them as resources as well, because they've got an incredible staff. So
okay. We have Brindle from Out of Hand Pizza, maybe out of topic, but as I do weekly deliveries to families in need, 11 of 17 such families are located in the Kakiola place. He's basically noticed vehicles rushing through Kakiola, and he's concerned about traffic on Kakiola. So I guess we'll go to you, Chief. But the neighborhood, I guess the neighborhood council that is frequented by seniors is located at Kakiola. What are the chances of installing a speed bumper or enforcing speed limit? I'll just let you know, Burham, about the speed bump. There are certain protocols. You can't just throw a speed bump down without doing a proper study. But I'll let the chief talk about enforcement.
Well, first of all, Burham, before I get started, I know what you've been doing for the community. I know what you are doing for the community. I know what you will continue to do for the Westfield community. I know what you've done for us personally here at the Westfield Police Department. I want to thank you for all that you're doing. With this state of emergency in effect, we've had to really shift our priorities and reallocate our resources to a lot of different matters. And a lot of them are not law enforcement matters or traffic safety matters. I'm hoping at some point in the near future, we can get back to some degree of regularity or normalcy here for our officers. I hear your concerns, and we will certainly attempt to address them in the very near future. We've been doing very little traffic enforcement, and there's a multitude of reasons for that. We're not looking to force interactions that are unnecessary. But if there's a public safety issue on Kakiola Place, we're going to address it. We will address it in the very near future. I assure you that. Right now, our officers have just been refocusing their attention to other more pressing matters because of the pandemic. And unfortunately, certain situations like this do get neglected. But I hope things will change in the very near future and we can start rededicating resources towards traffic enforcement.
And Burham, I'll just add my public thanks as well. You have really been a rock for so many people and businesses in the community, and so grateful for it, really.
Thank you, Burham. We have a question from Eric Lipkin. Assuming Westfield residents are tested as much as anyone in Union County, New Jersey, or the U.S., is there any insight as to why the mortality rate in Westfield is 15%? 15% is so much higher than the county or state. I don't think our mortality rate is 15%. We have a population of almost 31,000, and we have, I think, 35 deaths as of today, I believe. Is that right?
It is correct, Jim, but I can address some issues that I think the community should be aware of. The number of deaths that we see in Westfield are always going to be higher than the surrounding communities just because we have those 2 long-term care centers. Unfortunately, as we all know, the long-term care centers have been disproportionately affected by this illness. Like as I said before, they are just more immunocompromised. They're disproportionately affected also with influenza, but the difference is there's a vaccine for influenza, right? So until we get a vaccine, I think we're always going to see those higher rates in the long-term care centers, and that really bumps the numbers for Westfield up, I think, dramatically. I think over half now, the deaths that we have seen have been in the long-term care centers, which is, which is so sad. One of the things I am looking to get from Union County is the number of residents in Westfield that have been tested at their testing site. They have not been able to provide that information as of today. But if we do get that information from the county as to the number of individuals who are tested, that will help really provide greater insight as to the bigger picture for who's testing positive, who's testing negative, and we can really start doing a deeper dive over the later spring and early summer so that we're more prepared in the fall.
Got it. I think that answered Mr. Lipkin's question. No other questions I see right now, Mayor. We'll give it a minute. If anyone else has any questions, they can submit. We did have someone in the webinar chat had asked a question about Lord and Taylor, but you would have addressed that, Mayor, about the property there and the zoning as well. And I don't see any other questions. I will say there is 60 participants on our Zoom call, Mayor, and I know this is also being broadcast on Facebook Live, so good response as of so far. So no other questions, I don't see, Mayor.
Well, thank you all so much for joining us today. You can't thank you enough. I hope you heard from everybody here today how grateful we are to the residents for your compliance, your compassion, your understanding. In spite of, I know we're all feeling a bit impatient and frustrated with these directives, but it's good to hear from Megan and affirm that they are indeed working. And let's just try not to get too excited when we see a little bit of the door open so that we don't deal with this again. But I will tell you, if the park's opening was any indication of the community and the care in which we're taking, I think we're going to be in good stead. So thank you all. As always, if there's anything that we could be doing better, sharing more information or answering questions, or do you just want to send us a good news story, please do. We're learning through this as we go, and we want to make sure that this will be a best practice going forward. So we need to hear from you on anything that we could be doing to improve. But thanks again, stay safe, and we'll do another one of these as needed. All suggestions welcome. Stay well, everybody.
Thank you.